Your textbook and our discussion in class will cover the dimensions of religion, the pieces that we'll use to recognize a religion when we see it, as well as to break down religious practices and texts to understand the different elements. What I want to talk about in this short video is the difference between doing theology and doing religious studies. This is a sort of helpful way, I suppose, of dividing between practicing religion and studying how others practice religion, right? The difference between being religious and studying religion in a non-religious way. So theology is the study of a religion based on a religious commitment to that religion in order to promote it. That's how your textbook defines theology. We could spend time thinking about whether that's suitable, whether that really addresses how theology is done in all different kinds of traditions. But I think, for now, this is a sufficient definition to contrast to religious studies, right? So religious studies is a field of academic study that aims to understand religious traditions objectively and in a religiously neutral way, right? So in this class, I don't make any assumptions about what your religious background, or if you would identify yourself as having a religious background, would be. Instead, we're just here to think about what do other people do and why is it compelling to them. I think in contrast, theology, something that's kind of missing from this definition, is that theology is about trying to understand and systematize especially the beliefs of a tradition. That theology is about the study of God. As we'll see, we have traditions that don't only have one God, such as Hinduism, that we're starting off with, depending on sort of how you understand it. And then Buddhism, which is generally non-theistic. So I think that, theology, even as a way to study different practices, would be a really insufficient approach for a class like this, right? And so we want to emphasize that religious studies studies religion in a neutral way. Some of those ways, right? The ways of studying religion could be theology. We certainly will study other people's theology, right? It's not to say that theology is unimportant, it's to say that it's not what we're doing. But religious studies, by definition, is interdisciplinary. So this semester, we'll use approaches and methods from all different kinds of what you might think of as other departments in the college, right? That history, psychology, sociology, cultural anthropology, which is to say, the difference between sociology is just to say studying things in large numbers and seeing trends, whereas cultural anthropology is especially about what's called ethnography. And that is a practice of what's called participant observation, of living with a community of practitioners or near, seeing them continuously and observing how they practice, maybe doing some interviews with some of the people who are more willing to talk to the scholar, and using basically a case study of one kind of single person or group's way of practicing to think about what this means for our broader understanding. But we also use other practices or lenses, right, that we could talk about women's studies. The textbook tells you gender studies, but we might also think about sexuality studies, as well as biology, and then phenomenology, which we just don't really have to worry about. Okay, so these are some of the things that the textbook goes over to tell us, how do we study religion in a non-religious way? We use these methodologies.